what's happening? Mahi told me you took the exam, didn't go very well.
Yeah, Manan. So I guess we talked also last week when I just had 1 week to prepare. I followed everything that you told me to do. I revised quant, and I also gave you. You told me to give one mock test. I gave two mock tests before the day and before that day as well. And I got a very decent score in both the mocks. As in one score I got a 700, and another score I got 660. And I was very confident everything was fine. And while the exam was going, I took verbal first. And in this verbal, I couldn't understand anything that was being asked. As in each and every sentence they asked me, it was taking time for me to digest what they were asking. Maybe it was an anxiety issue, or maybe something happened, but I don't know. I was not in my right state of mind.
That's something that you have to take care of, Akshat, on the day of the exam, right? I mean, the only thing that will probably stop you from getting a high score if you've already done well on the mock tests is the state of mind. Were you too anxious before the exam?
Not really. I was quite confident, and as in the first very question that I got of verbal, I think I got it right. The next question that came up, I think that in the back of my mind, I was doing this calculation that okay, fine, I got the first question right. This question seems to be harder. Maybe it's a 700 level question, and therefore the language is tough. So I was feeling fine after that. But as soon as I started attempting more and more questions, I thought I was stuck in a loop where every question seems to be like a 700 800 level question.
GMAT is a standardized exam, right? So it wouldn't really make the exam tougher for you and not for someone else, right? I mean, it has to maintain the same difficulty essentially across for all people. If you do get the questions right, obviously the difficulty does tend to increase, but the point is it doesn't shoot up to a 700 right off the bat after one or two questions. It kind of organically gets there. Do you have any kind of timeline in mind, any target you've set in mind when you want to get done with it, so we can plan backwards?
Yeah, so I wanted to discuss about that only. I have actually no clue what to do right now. I don't know when to give the exam, even to give the exam again or not, because this is the second attempt that I gave. As far as the verbal section is concerned, I just thought that there is a pattern that I tend to underperform in the actual tests, and I cannot really focus. And maybe the GMAT is not for me, and that's why I was kind of nervous to give it again. Not nervous, but I wasn't sure.
When you know you're not getting a desired score and you know you're taking the exam a little sooner than when you want to, right? You would want to take the exam when you feel completely ready for the exam. And if you've had a bad experience with verbal, that definitely might have a role to play, because then that fear essentially gets into your system again. Sometimes when you're being overly cautious, your body essentially responds in a very different way, where it starts overanalyzing every single thing. And as a result of that, you might not be able to get the questions right. Some people end up overshooting the time limit, and therefore they end up like making a string of mistakes towards the end. Some people, for instance, they zone out completely, they blank out, they're not able to digest what is given to them on the screen. And these are all manifestations of what happens when you're under a lot of duress, when you're under a lot of pressure because of the high stakes exam, right? So one of the things that you have to essentially focus on from this point onwards is that you need to get comfortable with it. You can't just expect to do well on the day of the exam if you haven't subjected yourself to that kind of pressure during practice. So during practice, you would want to push yourself to the point where you know that the exam can never put as much pressure on you as you have put on yourself. And one of the things that I had done was, if the exam says I need to get the question done within, let's say, a minute 48 or 50 seconds, I'm going to push myself to get the answer within 1.5 minutes. And that's for the toughest of questions, because then on the day of the exam, I'm more relaxed because I know I'll have extra time to invest. And that is actually the kind of feeling that you would want to have on the exam, where you know everything is in your control and you would be able to manage the pace, and you don't have to worry too much about consequences because you've prepared well enough already. In your case, there was the timeline was crunched. You wanted to take the exam in about a week or 10 days. And I would have wanted you to push yourself by another one week or 10 days. But obviously the GMAT was expiring. So you had to kind of go for it and get done with it. At this point, I would suggest, Akshat, primarily let the focus be on the timing aspect, especially on verbal. If you're spending around, and I'm telling you, like 90% people who join me, Akshat, are joining me for verbal, right? Quant is something that's fairly sorted for most people, and I obviously help them refine it even more. But verbal is essentially something that even the best of the best people struggle with. So if you are absolutely confident that, Manan, give me any question, doesn't matter which difficulty of question you give me, I will be able to get, let's say, 95, 100% accuracy, and time is not a constraint here, then you start working on timing. Because if you don't have enough confidence in yourself to get the question right, if I'm giving you unlimited time, then obviously you'll never have that confidence when you start timing yourself. How you get this done with, so you must have done a lot of content I've shared with you already, right, Akshat? When you're solving questions at home and you're doing a quiz or you're doing a mock test, then the stakes are not that high and you don't feel the pressure as much. So that's what I'm saying, like you need to artificially create an environment that makes you feel the same kind of emotions you feel when you're taking the exam. Because when you're practicing questions in that same emotional state, that same mental state, then you'll be able to have more control over yourself. If on the exam something like that were to happen, you know what you have been doing for so long that will allow you to avoid that thing from happening again. But if you only subject yourself to that level of stress or that level of pressure on the day of the exam, then how many exams can you take before you actually come to terms with the way you respond to it? Once you've been able to get your average time per question down to around 1.5 minutes per question, then you start working on the mock tests. If conceptually there's nothing else for you to work on, I think timing is the only thing that could be holding you back.
So regarding the timeline as well, first of all, should I give another attempt? That was a genuine question that I had.
No, 100%. I think,
I'm honestly thinking to pivot to maybe give GRE a try. Maybe it is easier than GMAT or.
Verbal honestly is on par, because we do have students who take GRE as well, and the feedback I've got is that verbal is on par, the quant is easier. So for those people who actually are struggling with quant, they are the ones who are better off taking the GRE, because that's where they have a significant advantage. But in your case, I think quant is anyway fine, right? Verbal is what you need to improve on, and you might actually face the same kinds of problems there as well in verbal. So you might not be able to get to a competitive enough score there as well. There's a student I know who got his target score in the 4th attempt, because anxiety is not something that basically everyone feels in the same way, right? Some people are able to manage it, control it. Some people are not able to manage it. They need to kind of familiarize themselves with the test environment before they can actually start to have more control over their emotions. And generally I find people scoring like 20-30 points higher than what they score on Manhattan tests. So in your case, if that is not has happened, then you know that exam day environment is what you need to worry about right now. And if you can control that, I'm 100% certain that you'll end up scoring at least as much as you've been getting on mocks, if not more.
So creating those conditions beforehand, and that too artificially, how do you recommend me to do it? Reducing the time and focusing more on quizzes is
focusing on quizzes, and basically, like, because you have to amp yourself up and say that I have to be serious here. I can't be like relaxed and chilling and sipping coffee and doing multiple things while I'm taking the quiz. You have to take it the way you take the exam. Channeling those same emotions that you feel on the day of the exam, the more control you will have over them, because you'll get familiar with that feeling. So that's why I'm saying, like, every single day when you're subjecting yourself to those emotions, you'll have more control on the day of the exam, and they will not exert as much influence or impact as they have right now, and you'll be able to do well. So once this is taken care of, I think 710-20 should be easy to achieve.
I know about the focus edition. There is no new concepts that are being added. SC is removed and geometry and one more topic from quant is removed, right? So as far as the concepts are there, I just have to work on the previously learned concepts.
Pacing largely, nothing else. I have seen countless examples in the past. Earlier, I used to think it matters a lot because sometimes it's just saying you're from McKinsey used to be enough for you to get an interview call. But now that's not the case. In the last 3-4 years, things have changed dramatically. So it's the contribution, the role that matters a lot more than anything else.